In August 2024, a man stood on a stage in Houston and promised the world. He spoke of synergy, growth, and a new era for the energy capital. That promise was underwritten by a clause that would quietly erase hundreds of six-figure salaries. Then, exactly 274 days later, the locks were changed. While the cameras were focused on the handshakes, a quiet 14-page addendum was signed into the Hess merger, one that didn't mention oil rigs or pipelines. It spoke instead in antiseptic language about efficiency and redundancy. It authorized the removal of up to 20% of a global workforce. It meant liquidation of people. To understand why a senior engineer who sold his life in California is now sitting in a dark house in Katy, Texas, wondering if his severance check will even clear, we have to look past the press releases. We have to listen for the scream the industry is trying to muffle. But before we get to the September clause, we have to look at the math of the betrayal. The scale of this wasn't a business move, it was a surgical extraction. Chevron closed a $53 billion acquisition of Hess Corporation and immediately flagged 15 to 20% of its global workforce for elimination. Up to 9,000 people reduced to a line item. In Houston alone, 1,275 employees were erased in a 120-day window, 575 from the downtown Hess Tower, and another 700 from the corporate headquarters. Over 1,200,000 square feet of prime downtown real estate turned into a high-rise ghost ship overnight. All of it driven by a goal to save $3 billion in structural costs, as quarterly earnings fell from $4.4 billion to $2.5 billion in a single year. The real cost is the 10,000 Texas energy jobs that vanished this year alone. To the families who moved here from San Ramon, the air in Houston didn't feel like opportunity, it felt like a countdown. They were told the move was a final step to enhance collaboration, but the internal documents tell a story of a company running from the very regulations that protected its workers. In the corporate suites, executives spoke of optimizing the human footprint. "We need to be leaner," they said. "The market won't wait for loyalty." Meanwhile, in the shadows of the refineries, workers whispered about the glass guillotine. They say if you walk past the Hess Tower at exactly 2:14 a.m., the same time the termination emails were sent, the building glows with an artificial, cold light that seems to hum with the ghosts of 9,000 careers. But here is the crack in the surface. On July 18th, the day the merger was finalized, a secondary notice was filed with the Texas Workforce Commission. It didn't just list names, it listed lives. 700 jobs in May, 575 in September. While Governor Abbott was publicly celebrating Texas as the energy capital of the world, the very companies he bragged about stealing from California were quietly gutting the Texas miracle from the inside out. Some say this is just the mechanical nature of the oil cycle, the inevitable consequence of a $1.9 billion earnings dip. They argue that the move to Houston was a strategic necessity to survive declining oil reserves and unfavorable tax swings. But others see a darker pattern. Why move 2,000 people from California just to fire them in Texas months later? Was the relocation ever about growth? Or was it a logistical shell game designed to lower the cost of the eventual firings? The records are silent, but the parking lots are empty. This isn't just a story about one company. It's a story about a state being used as a corporate playground. If the narrative was about bringing jobs home, it has now shifted to the home consuming its own. While Southwest Airlines was being heralded for adding 2,000 jobs in Austin, the energy sector was losing 5 times that amount in a single quarter. The numbers don't lie, but the press conferences do. Look at the collapse by the digits. ConocoPhillips is cutting 25% of its staff. BP has eliminated 7,000 positions. The Permian rig count, the heartbeat of the American economy, has plummeted by 52 rigs in less than a year. We are witnessing the systematic decommissioning of the American middle class, one corporate merger at a time. Remember that September clause I mentioned? The 14-page addendum that didn't mention oil? It turns out that clause was a redundancy protocol that triggered the moment the ink dried on the $53 billion deal. It was a premeditated strike against the very people who built the company. The mystery isn't why they were fired. The mystery is why we continue to trust a handshake from men who measure success in structural savings rather than human lives. The tower is still there, 1,200,000 square feet of glass and steel, standing as a monument to what happens when loyalty is replaced by an algorithm. The locks have been changed, but the questions remain. How many more miracles can Texas survive before there's no one left to work them? But the Texas miracle isn't just about a single merger. It is a systemic decommissioning of the middle class being sold as economic victory. While the governor's office was issuing press releases about Southwest Airlines adding 2,000 jobs in Austin, the energy sector, the literal bedrock of the state's identity, was losing 5 times that amount in a single quarter. This is the corporate scrapyard effect. Companies relocating to Texas to flee California's labor protections, only to use that lack of protection to gut their own workforce with surgical precision. The Permian Basin rig count, once the heartbeat of the American economy, has plummeted by 52 rigs in less than a year. We are watching a decade of productivity gains, the ability to produce more oil with half the workers, turn into a weapon against the very people who built the industry. The mystery of the September clause finally resolves into a cold digital reality. It wasn't a clause about oil. It was a timed human inventory liquidation designed to maximize shareholder dividends during an earnings dip. One senior supervisor, who saw her entire team erased in a single 2:14 a.m. email, described the silence in the Hess Tower as deafening, a physical weight that stays with you long after you've been escorted to the curb. They call it the glass guillotine because, in the new era of energy, your tenure isn't a badge of honor. It's a liability to be optimized. As the next wave of efficiency looms just 90 days away, the industry is betting that the public will keep looking at the handshakes while they ignore the screams muffled by the boardroom walls. If you're still holding on to the idea that your loyalty will be returned when the quarterly reports turn red, you aren't just a worker. You're a line item waiting to be deleted. The machine doesn't have a heart, it only has a ledger. And right now, the ledger says you are a luxury they no longer intend to keep. Don't let the next miracle catch you off guard while the locks are being changed behind your back. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell, because the next 9,000 cuts are already on the calendar, and we are the only ones tracking the real cost of the silence. Stay sharp, stay cynical, and never trust a handshake from a man who measures success in structural savings.